Net Gain Staffordshire is a new website that's been developed over the last 12 months by Staffordshire Wildlife Trust. So the website is designed to ensure that any funds generated from Biodiversity Net Gain are spent in the right places to deliver the biggest benefits for nature. It's a tool that's aimed at landowners, farmers, developers, ecologists and local authorities. And it's been designed to make the biodiversity net gain process as simple and transparent as possible. So it's a tool for those who are wanting to buy units so that they can make the right decisions about where to spend their money to get the most impact. And for those wanting to use their land for BNG to make the right decisions about how that land is managed. And for local authorities, Net Gain Staffordshire is an invaluable tool for ensuring that BNG aligns with the emerging local nature recovery strategy, and also helping to ensure that the private funds generated from biodiversity net gain are spent in the right places for both nature and people. So now I'll hand over to Gigi, who is going to give you a demonstration of Net Gain Staffordshire. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Liz. So what I'm gonna do is just got a kind of short little kind of introductory presentation to run through before I get through to the actual demo of the site. So yeah, I'm Gigi Hennessy. I'm the Environmental Net Gain Development Manager here at Staffordshire Wildlife Trust, which we've kind of been working on the development of this new portal, Net Gain Staffordshire. So kind of give you a little bit of breakdown in terms of what Net Gain Staffordshire is. Liz has done a pretty good job already. And then yeah, I'll do a demonstration of the site. So kind of the fundamental baseline level, Net Gain Staffordshire is an online registry of sites that are available for selling biodiversity net gain units. But it's a little bit different from that because obviously there's quite a few sites that already do that. So if you're a developer looking for BNG units, you can go on one of these other sites and find some that are available within the local authority, meeting the needs that you have. However, Net Gain Staffordshire is a little bit different in that we are also displaying something that is called the Nature Recovery Network. So I'm going to go into a bit more detail about what the Nature Recovery Network is, but just on a kind of brief level, it's a map that highlights what habitats should be created where to maximise connectivity of the landscape and bring the maximum benefits to nature. So essentially, it's a map that can kind of demonstrate what habitats should be created where. And that's something that is unique to Net Gain Staffordshire. So no other online portals have this information. And not only are we kind of demonstrate this, it's also a place where we've got kind of lots of information, or hopefully all the information you could ever need about biodiversity net gain all in one place. So if you have a question about it, you can go to the website and hopefully your answer will be there. So just in case there's anyone on the call that doesn't know what biodiversity net gain is, I'm just going to really, really briefly explain it. We have actually done a webinar on this previously as well, which is on our YouTube channel. If you want any more information, you can watch that, or you can just go to Net Gain Staffordshire and hopefully the information is there. But essentially what it is, it's an approach to development and or land management with the overall aim of leaving the environment in a better state than it was beforehand. It is meant to become mandatory in January. Secondary legislation is actually meant to come out tomorrow, apparently, to give more information about BNG. So keep an eye on that. And essentially what it is going to require is a 10% increase in biodiversity compared to what was already present on development sites. So and habitat has to be secured for at least 30 years. So the management plans that you are putting in place to improve the biodiversity on the site have to take place for 30 years. And that's true for the development site and also for any off-site unit providers. So just to kind of explain that graphically, it makes it a little bit easier to understand. So in the first line, you've got a site that gets knocked down, destroyed for a habitat, for a development, sorry, and then that's it, nothing else happens. So that's obviously a net loss in biodiversity because nothing's been done to replace what was there before. In the second line, the same thing happens, but this time off-site, the same measurement. So it's measured using this biodiversity metric. is replaced somewhere else. So that's no net loss because you've replaced what was there, but it also isn't a net gain because you haven't achieved this 10% additional biodiversity. Whereas in the third line, not only have you got the off-site work, but you've also got on-site. So you've got a green roof, a pond, some landscaping, and that's all done on-site. So that could get you back to that same level of biodiversity. And then for that 10% uplift, they've had to go off-site and do some habitat restoration somewhere else. So then that third line, you've achieved a 10% uplift on the biodiversity that was already present before the development took place. And then this third option as well, this offsite kind of provider here is produced biodiversity net gain units. And that's what landowners, third-party landowners, can produce through doing restoration work on their land. They can essentially create these units that they can then sell to developers who need them to achieve this 10% uplift. Very similar to how carbon credits work. Obviously, in the first instance, though, on-site uplift is preferred, and also plans in the kind of design of the development to ensure that as little habitat is destroyed as possible as well. There's this idea of the mitigation hierarchy. So then I kind of mentioned this thing called the Nature Recovery Network. So just kind of, this is something that you might not have heard of. It is a national scale network, so it's not just unique to Staffordshire, but obviously here at Staffordshire Wildlife Trust, we've done it for every local authority in the county. And essentially, there are a series of maps, and they indicate, a network of wild rich places. And then on top of this, they identify potential areas of expansion for these key habitats. So on Net Gain Staffordshire, if you've had a look already, and I'll show you this in a moment, we have the habitat opportunity map displayed. And this map has been created using local knowledge alongside data sets on soils, local biodiversity action plans, existing habitat inventories, and then they're using ecological modelling software essentially to kind of figure out where there are already habitats and where you could potentially link them together. So, for example, if you had kind of disconnected areas of woodland, how you could, where you could plant more trees or hedgerows to increase that connectivity. And so it defines kind of where habitats are already well connected and where you can direct the delivery of habitat creation, enhancement, or restoration to create this kind of network. And that's because there's kind of, you might have heard of this thing called the Lawson Principles, where essentially, if you have lots of kind of disconnected areas, even of really high quality habitats, it's much more beneficial if you're able to link them together because it allows for kind of populations to move, individuals to move across the habitats. So in order to really maximize BNG, biodiversity, linking habitats together is really, really key. So then how does this actually link in with BNG? So landowners and developers can use these kind of opportunity maps to guide restoration decisions on their land or project site. So as a landowner, if you have a site and it's located somewhere in the landscape and you think, well, there's a few different things I could do to kind of restore this, I could improve grassland diversity, I could plant some trees or potentially put heathland in, depending where you are. You can use the Nature Recovery Network to kind of help guide what you might want to do. Obviously, it's not mandatory. You don't have to do what this network suggests, but there are kind of elements in the metric that kind of promote this kind of strategic delivery of certain habitat types. And for developers as well, this is the same thing too, in terms of choosing, and for local authorities as well, in terms of choosing where developments should take place. You can prioritize areas where there isn't much opportunity for kind of natural habitat restoration, or also it can help kind of help you decide kind of the plans you want to build into your development site to ensure that you maximize kind of the benefits to nature on it. And then also developers as well can use the NRN map to identify kind of specific sites that help achieve the best benefits for nature. So for example, if you know that you're going to need woodland units or hedgerow units, you can choose a site that falls within a woodland opportunity area, and you know that you're delivering a really positive thing for nature. And in terms of for local authorities as well, Liz kind of mentioned this like local nature recovery strategy. So this is something that is currently being developed. It's across the whole of the country. It's not just unique to Staffordshire, but it's essentially a location of kind of strategic areas where habitat restoration needs to take place. And the Nature Recovery Network kind of helps guide these decisions. So local authorities can use this kind of NRN map to identify areas where they want to focus delivery of restoration work, using Biodiversity Net Gain private money to essentially deliver kind of policy and government goals. So that's kind of just the background spiel, so everyone kind of knows where we are with this. So I'm now going to move on to an actual demonstration of the site. So I'm not sure if anyone's had a look at the site yet and how it's worked, but what I'll kind of do is do a brief overview. Obviously, after this, you can go away and have a play, have a look around. But I'll take you through the different pages, not in loads of detail because there's quite a lot of information on there. And then I will show you the Nature Recovery Network map and kind of explain to you how that works. And then I'll do a demonstration on how to submit a site, either as a landowner or as a developer. It's basically the same process, but I'll show you for both. And with developers as well, just to say, obviously, if you are an ecologist or a land manager working on behalf of the landowner, obviously it works in the same way as well. But I'll talk through that when we get to it. So this is just the very nice open page. Kind of gives you some brief information about what Net Gain Staffordshire is. Here you can click straight away to register and create an account, or if you want to view the map, you can click here too. Just kind of two easy options. A breakdown of kind of what Net Gain Staffordshire is, basically what I've just gone through with you. This idea of kind of the strategic approach to nature recovery. So again, mentions the local nature recovery strategy, talks about the Environment Act and kind of how Net Gain Staffordshire and the portal is helping to achieve kind of these strategic goals, which is really important. And then again, how you can create an account so you can sign up. And just some things about why you might want to sign up. So as a landowner, kind of the benefits, and then also as a developer. And again, this takes you to some information on how you can register. So then if we just go up here, so I was talking about how we want this page and this website to kind of be a one-stop shop for information about Biodiversity Net Gain. So we've just got some general information about BNG. So what it is, because like we said, not everyone's necessarily going to know. This idea of the mitigation hierarchy. So this is something that is obviously really important to us at Staffordshire Wildlife Trust, but also I'm sure to local authorities who are on the call today. And I'm sure many of you as developers and landowners as well. In that, in the first instance, it's always preferred that biodiversity loss due to development is avoided. That's obviously kind of the most important thing. And if that isn't possible, then measures need to be taken place to kind of reduce that impact as much as possible. And then the final step is essentially this idea of compensation. So the idea of purchasing offsite units. So that's something always that you need to keep in mind, and it's something that I know that local authorities are obviously aware of. But we just kind of want to make that key. But obviously, we do understand that development is needed, and we want to make sure that by using things like the Nature Recovery Network map, we can make sure that the right habitats are being created in the right place. There's always a risk that it will be misused, and we really want to make sure that doesn't happen. And then I've spoken a bit about kind of biodiversity, but what does that actually mean? Well, there is a specific metric that is used. So if you are a landowner or a developer, you will learn what the metric is, because you will need to get baselines of your sites and then calculate potential uplifts that can be achieved through restoration work. So there's a specific spreadsheet that you can use to do this, and you'll have to, as a landowner, get a trained ecologist to come and do the surveys for you, and they'd be able to talk you through this in more detail. But this is just kind of a little bit of information so that you kind of got that information here, and just talks about the baseline and post-intervention, how you calculate that. And again, then just some kind of specific information relating to different groups. So as a landowner, some of the information you might need. So for example, how much a unit is worth. This obviously is, it's not a fixed price. It's dependent on negotiations between yourself and the developer. But these are kind of the prices that we've seen. But this could definitely change, and it will change. From developers as well, just a bit of information. And then also for local authorities, we kind of talk a bit more detail about the local nature recovery strategy and how the portal can kind of help to deliver that. And then just a little bit of an infographic kind of breaking down the process of BNG, just to kind of make it quite clear. DEFRA have actually released a version of this as well now. And then we also have an FAQ page. So if there's any other questions you have about BNG or anything else in general, we do have some kind of general questions that we've been asked quite a lot. And if there's a question that isn't answered here, then obviously you can always contact us as well. I'll come to the map in a second. We then have a blog post page. So the minute there's only 3 on there, but we'll obviously be updating this as we go along. And we're hoping as well to get things like blog posts, guest blog posts, sorry, and just in general kind of interesting information relating to BNG we'll be putting up on here. So keep an eye on this space. And we'll obviously be advertising that on our social media as well. And then there's kind of a generic resources page. So if there's stuff that's not answered on this and on our FAQs or on the page, you can also go to kind of these other websites as well. So for example, like the technical documents that you need for the metric are here, and then just kind of information from places like SAIEM and the Planning Advisory Service as well is a very good place to go if you're a local authority. And then our just kind of generic contact page if you have any questions. So that's kind of a breakdown of the overall of the site. So now we'll come to the map and the nature recovery network. So it's quite a complex thing, the nature recovery network, and there's a lot of work that kind of goes into creating it. And there's all the information you could possibly need is broken down on this page here. So it talks about kind of how the map is created. So you can click on here to actually go and view it. It talks about habitat distinctiveness. So this is something that's actually included in the biodiversity net gain metric, and just talks about kind of the different distinctiveness level of habitats. And that's something that is calculated for you. And then the idea of the mitigation hierarchy is repeated here. And then you've got this idea of strategic habitat areas. So these aren't currently on the map, but we are hoping to add them on, essentially highlighting kind of the strategic areas of habitat and nature and recovery. And then finally, the habitat connectivity opportunity areas. So just a bit more detail about how these have been calculated and then created. So if you have any questions about kind of the mapping elements, this is the page to go to. And hopefully all the information is on here. Otherwise, again, you can always just drop us an email. So I am currently not logged in. So this is showing you what the map would look like if you don't have an account, because you can view the map, Nature Recovery Network, without being registered with Net Gain Staffordshire. However, you don't see sites that are on the portal, essentially. So if you want to actually be able to contact someone regarding biodiversity units, you would have to create an account, or to see kind of the current sites that are available, you would need to log in for that. But you can still see the map without having an account, just to kind of see the layers. So just to show with woodland, so for example, these kind of brown areas here are now showing you where there are opportunity areas for woodland to be created. And it also does obviously show where there is already some existing woodland as well. But the main point of this is to demonstrate to you where it would be beneficial to create woodland. So for example, if you had a site here, woodland creation would be a positive thing for you to think about doing. Or if you were a developer looking to purchase units and there was a site here and you were looking for woodland units, this would be potentially a good spot to look at. You can also put on things for like heathland, grassland. Some of the layers take a little bit longer to load just because there's a lot more data. And so again, it kind of starts to overlay all these different habitat types. You can put labels on the map as well. So if you want to see where things are to make it a little bit easier, you can do that. And you can also toggle to generic map as well. So you've got these different options here. You can also do street view as well if you really want to. But yeah, so that's what the map looks like if you're not logged in. But it's better if you have an account. So what we can do is if we go to register, this here now takes you to where you can sign up for the portal. So if you already have an account, then you can just log in. But if you don't, there's some information on how you can make an account. So you, when you create an account, you don't have to upload a site. You can just create an account and have a look. You don't have to upload anything. But obviously, we're kind of hoping that most of you are wanting to put things onto the portal. So to create an account is very easy. You just sign up with your email as kind of standard. And then as a and it's the same for landowners and developers. I'll come to local authorities in a minute. And if you do want to add your land, so I will go through how to submit a site. I'll do a demonstration of that in a moment. But essentially, there are kind of a few different ways you can do it. So you can either upload a shapefile. Now, obviously, I'm sure a lot of you don't have shapefiles for your land. That isn't a problem at all. If you don't have that, you can either upload a PDF or a Word document. And we're also going to work on putting that you can put an image as well of your boundary, essentially, and then we can upload the shapefile for you, so we can map it out and upload it for you. Just a point on the shapefile thing as well. You just have to make sure it's saved as a polygon and in the correct coordinate system, which is this WGS84 It's generally the default one. It doesn't matter if it's in the wrong coordinate system. We can convert it on our end, but obviously it's slightly easier for us. That information is here, and if you have any questions as well, you can always ask us. And then there's some information you have to input, so like the local authority, the habitats that you have found on your land, documentation proving that you are the landowner or you have the landowner's permission, contact details and the size of your site. And then if you have this available, the number of units available for each habitat. At the moment, we're assuming quite a lot of you won't know this because you won't have had any surveys done, and that's not a problem. That's why we've made it that at the beginning, you don't necessarily have to have this information. And then once you've uploaded that, we'll get a notification about it and we can then verify that we're happy and everything's worked, and it will then be published onto the map. But like I said, I'll go through all this again in a demo. For developers, it's very similar. So it's the same thing. You sign up and you upload a shapefile or a document boundary. Ecologists as well, obviously on behalf of developers can submit this information. And then again, the local authority falls into the planning application number, location information, the units you're wanting to purchase. Obviously, it's a bit different to a landowner who's displaying units they're selling. And then also, so with landowners, you have this information, you can upload it, but as a developer, we will be looking for the metric calculations and your assessment as well. And then you get the same thing, we have to verify. So for landowners and developers, signing up is currently free. There isn't a registration fee. For landowners, this will eventually change. So next year, we haven't agreed a price yet, but it will no longer be free next year. So sign up now while it's still free. It will always be free for developers, and the reason for that is because we want to make sure that we make it as easy as possible for you as developers to purchase units that are delivering the most for nature, and we didn't want to put any blockers in there. And for local authorities, currently you do have to pay. So if you want to create a local authority account, please do email us and get in touch, and we can then be in touch with you about creating an account and kind of getting the necessary paperwork sent over to you. So once you've kind of got all the information that you need, you can register. So you can just scroll down the page and you can register as a landowner or as a developer or as a local authority. And it's pretty easy. You just put your first name, your last name, your address, all this information, and then sign up. So it's fairly self-explanatory in terms of how to register. So I will just log into an account. And we can go through how to submit a site. So once you've logged in, once you've registered, you'll be taken to your account page. And so you can see this is a landowner account. So I've got the landowner portal. Down here, you can see your sites. So I haven't got any sites at the minute, but if I did, they'd be here. So you have the approved sites. And when you submit a site, like I said, it has to be okayed by us. So it'll be pending when you actually submit one. Hopefully we'll be able to submit kind of okay them fairly quickly, but if it's taking too long, obviously you can always drop us an email and give us a bit of a nudge. And then you've also got the messaging system down here. So if you, as a landowner or developer, you want to kind of communicate with another person on the portal, you don't have to use their personal email. So you can do all communication within the portal through this little messaging system. So you can message someone directly. And then you can obviously edit your account and things like that. So here as well, we'll just view the map because it looks different now. So if we scroll down, you can see now there's the search option and the filter option. And we've also got a few sites that are actually already on the portal. And everything else is exactly the same. So it's the same layers, you can toggle them on and off. But the main difference is now you've actually got sites and you can filter as well. So for example, if you were a developer and you were thinking you wanted to purchase woodland units, you could go on this filter and you could click and just display sites that are selling or have woodland units available or woodland on them. And you can see now here the results have changed. It's only displaying the 2 sites that have woodlands, and they're also on the map as well. So you can see the little one there and the little one down here. And there's the key here. So landowner sites are displayed in blue and developer sites are displayed in yellow. We're also going to add as well that you can filter by local authority, because obviously that's very important when a development takes place. you're going to want to purchase units that are available in the local authority that the development is taking place in. So we are going to be adding that as well. So you can then toggle on this woodland layer, and you can then have a look at the two sites. So you could go and have a look at Leeds Farm, for example, and you can see that it's located within this woodland strategic area. So if you're looking to purchase woodland units, you think that's great. It's delivering, it could be delivering exactly what I want in a strategic and well-placed area. So let's say you want to kind of get some more information about the site. You can click on it here, and it will take you to the information page. So it gives you the site name, the local authority it's found in, habitats it has, and its size. At the moment, these sites don't have unit information on, but I'll show you that when I add a new site. But it can give you the number of units available for each habitat type as well. So if you are a developer and you need a specific number of units, you can confirm that the site is offering enough that you need. And then you can see it here as well, a little like insert. And then you can go back to the map this way, or you can just press back. And it takes you back to the map here. If you know like the name of a specific site, you can obviously search for it as well in this little search box, or you can just kind of use the filter option. And so here, just to show you kind of a development site, you can see as well when you click on the little eye, it takes you towards it. So let's say you were a developer on here and you were thinking of kind of changing some of the plans that you had, or if you were a landowner and you were trying to figure out what kind of restoration work you want to do, you can kind of click on the different layers, zoom back in, you can see, okay, it's not within a woodland area. What about, is it in a grassland area? And then you can zoom back in, and yeah, you can just see that it is. And so you could say, okay, well, maybe then I would focus on grassland restoration over tree planting in this particular area. And then you can kind of turn that off, and you can toggle the layers and have a look and see kind of where they fall. So that's kind of how the map works. We've got a little bit of kind of description on how you can use it down here as well. So if you can't remember, or you just want a bit of a kind of rejig, kind of a step-by-step. So if you were looking for woodland, for example, how you can use the site to find woodland kind of strategic opportunity areas. And as for a local authority as well, obviously local authorities, if you register, you can put your sites on here too. And you can have then exactly the same kind of process. You can look to see what kind of things you should be doing on your sites. And you can also use it to kind of guide developers as to where they should be purchasing off-site units to kind of deliver the strategic goals and to deliver the correct habitats in the correct place. So you can very easily, direct a developer to a particular site. So that's the map. So now, if we go back onto our account, I'll show you how to submit a site. So hopefully the technology does work. So you go onto the submit a site section, and you then click on which one you are. So I'm a landowner, so I'm going to be doing a landowner site. And so then you have to give some names of your site. So this one, let's call it this farm. And then you can put some information of names. So for example, so contact number. That, and then email address, for example. So then you need to put the actual information. So like I said before, if you don't have a shapefile, don't worry, that's not a problem. You can upload a PDF or a Word document of your site boundary, and we can then put it on the map for you. But for this, I do have a shapefile. So with shapefiles, you get kind of multiple files. You have to upload all of them. So when you put it on, so generally I think it's 6, and they'll all come up. So that's how you upload the shapefile. You then have to have your permission of ownership document. So I put that on there. And then you need to list the local authorities that your land falls in. So this one is in East Staffordshire. And then you list the habitats that are found. So for example, this one, let's say it's grassland. And let's say there's some hedgerow. So then here it asks you to list the number of units that are available for each one. So we could say maybe that there's 20 grassland and 5 hedgerow. The BNG metric output, this is essentially these added together. So this is kind of the number of units that you would that you have available to sell. So we could put that on as 25. And then the area of the site, so let's say it's 10 hectares. As a landowner, you don't have to have these reports, but if you do, it's really great to put them on because then developers can kind of see exactly what it is that how you've come to the results that you've come to, and also the management plan as well, and how you're going forward to manage the land. But if you don't have these, that's not a problem. You can still create and upload the site. So then you just need some location information. So this just helps us if we need to do any mapping of your site. So you can just pop all this information in here. And we've given a website here as well that can help you find the latitude and longitude and get this information for your site. So then we just click here and hopefully everything is done correctly. And we submit the site. Great, so it's a success. So then essentially, if you go back to your account, you can see that you've now got a pending site. So this one isn't up yet because we'll have to approve it. And then it will turn up on the map once it's been approved. So if I then go into my admin account, I will approve that. So then if we refresh this, so it's now gone to approved. Fingers crossed. There we go. So you can now see it's on this little map here. So you've got a site name, the local authority and the habitats, and you've got the grassland number of units available and the hedgerow number of units available, and the area of the site. And if we then now go onto the map, this will now show up. So you can see Tweedy's farm. We can have a look, and there it is on the map. And you can then have a look and see what kind of falls on this site here. So you can see that it falls within woodland. See if it falls within grassland. A little bit an edge corner of it. So then, yeah, this essentially is kind of how you submit a site, and then you can see where it falls on this opportunity map. So that's for a landowner. It's essentially the same process for a developer, but I can show you for a developer as well. So I log in again, different email address this time. So now you can see here, it says a developer portal, and again, the same deal, approved and pending. So as well, if we want to submit a site, we would this time say developer site. And again, here, so we just need to put the information relating to the site. So total. And then this is going to be very original names. Let me just go. And again, so the same thing here. If you have a shapefile, fantastic. If not, you can do a PDF or Word document again. So this time we have the developer one. So 6 files. You then need to have a planning application number. So I'll just make something up for now. The local authority again. So you can search for that. If your land falls on like a border and you have 2 local authorities, you list them both. So that's why we've got all that apply. So if you have multiple local authorities, that it can deal with that. So that's not a problem. And then again, the habitats found on land. This should actually really say habitats that you are needing units to purchase for. So let's say it's grassland and lake. So then you can write that here. So it's habitats you're wanting to purchase. So it's the number that you're wanting to purchase. So you may need 15 of those and 6 of those, for example. And that's where you pop that. The BNG metric output here as well is going to be these ones added together too. So it's essentially the total number of units you're looking for. And for this one, you do also need to have a BNG assessment report. So we will just choose that. So that's just essentially your planning application report showing that you're requiring offsite units. So if we then pop this information here. Yeah, and postcode. And for the postcode as well, it's just the closest postcode to the site. And then just to confirm, that's all fine. Again, so then if we go to the account, you'll see that it's pending. So if I then log on to that and publish it. Now it's gone to approved. And again, if we click on this, you can see it's just down here. And again, we've got the number of units needed, habitats, planning application number. And again, if you wanted to send a direct message, you would do it through here. And then you can also view the documents that are uploaded as well. And if we go onto the map, that will now come up. And you can see that it's come up in a different color. If you zoom into it, it's come up to a yellow color to show that it's a development site. So that's how you submit sites and how you use the map. And I think that is essentially everything. So for local authorities, it would be the same process in terms of submitting a landowner site for the sites that you want to submit for a local authority. But obviously at the minute, if you could just get in touch with us, we can kind of organise creating local authority accounts. So I know there are a few people from local authorities on the call today. So that is everything from the demo. So I'm going to stop sharing. So I guess we can now take questions. I don't know if Liz, if you want to take over on that one.
Yeah, thanks, Gigi. That was great. If you have any questions about the portal, please feel free to use the Q&A function at the on the bottom menu bar along the bottom of your screen. So yeah, we already have a few questions. So the first one from an attendee: if you have done the baseline assessment for us, can you do the land stroke input stages for us too?
Yeah, I think that's something that we would be able to do, because we could act as a ecologist that could be inputting the site. Obviously, the contact details and information that we would put on would be for you as the landowner. So but that would be something that obviously we'd have to kind of negotiate as part of the deal of doing the survey. So that's probably more of a bespoke thing that we would have to kind of arrange. I think that's probably how that would work. Yeah.
Okay. Is it worth saying a few words about the services that SWT is offering for BNG as well? Just to
Yes, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. That question kind of highlights that a bit. So yeah, so obviously the portal is kind of semi-separate to Wildlife Trust. So we are technical leads on it, but we are hoping for it to be a partnership between kind of local authorities, ourselves and developers and landowners. And then kind of separately to the portal, as Staffordshire Wildlife Trust, we also offer biodiversity net gain assessments. So if you have a bit of land that you are interested in putting forward for biodiversity net gain, you can get in touch with us and we can come and have a look, put together a quote for you, and then potentially do the biodiversity net gain baseline assessment along with producing uplift reports. So that would essentially be us looking at your site and determining what opportunities there are on it and the potential number of units that you could produce from doing various enhancements or actual kind of habitat creation as well. And as part of that, then yes, we would ask for you to put your site onto the portal if we were doing the assessment for you, and that is definitely something that we could do as part of that service. Yes.
Okay, thanks. So a question from Annette: does this include parish councils? Do they have to pay to register for Net Gain Staffordshire?
That is a good question, and one that I have to say we haven't actually talked about. I don't know, Dave, if you want to.
Yeah, probably not for parish councils, but yeah, we'd be very keen to include land that's particularly available green space, open to the public that we could include in the register. So that's definitely a discussion to have offline.
Okay, question from Gillian. To gain strategic uplift qualifications in the metric related to the local nature recovery strategy, does it have to be identified by the county, or can a district strategy identify it?
So we have got, as Gigi said, every single authority now within the county has been mapped. And as part of that mapping process, there is a strategic significance layer that's not currently on Net Gain Staffs, but it will be imminently. So that is that strategic significance sort of qualifier. So that we are hoping that that's adopted by the LNRS, but obviously the LNRS local nature recovery strategy sort of is in its infancy, but we're very much hoping that the LNRS strategic significance matches with the strategic significance that we've already mapped at local authority level.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Another question from Gillian. Is there an ambition to overlay identifying carbon offsetting opportunities?
So that's a good question. Yeah, I think yes is the short answer. We're hoping this, obviously that would be quite a long way down the line. This is obviously still quite a new thing for us as a trust. We are kind of thinking about the next stages in phase 2 and how we're going to kind of upgrade this portal. And I think future on and down the line, we would like to incorporate kind of all environmental net gains. That's why we haven't called it like Biodiversity Net Gain Staffordshire or anything like that. It's just net gain in general. And that's because we do want to have opportunities for looking at things like carbon, like flood mitigation risk, potentially air quality, all of those things. Obviously, it's quite ambitious, so it might be not imminent, but it is definitely something that we would look to do and work with local authorities as well. To obviously, quite a lot of data will be needed for that, and so that's something we definitely look to do down the line.
Hey, thanks, Gigi. Another question, is the permission or ownership documentation visible to any parties other than the Wildlife Trust?
So at the moment that is public, but if that is something that people do not want, we can potentially change that to make it to be private. That's something we can very easily do. So that's interesting feedback. Thank you.
Question from Natalie. How are you addressing ecological potential? So the area need management rather than planting schemes. The BNG report may not give this, landowners may not realise.
So I suppose with that, if you already have existing woodland or existing grassland and it falls within an opportunity area, then what that kind of implies is that it could be enhanced. So instead of starting again. So in terms of like if you have an area of existing woodland, obviously we would say to enhance that if possible. In terms of with planting schemes, what we would hope is that having the grassland opportunity area, and let's say you've got an area of grassland and you're thinking of planting on it, but actually it's in a grassland opportunity area, it would be more beneficial to enhance that to plant a new woodland. I think hopefully that's kind of answering the question. And also the metric itself, so you're right, it doesn't fundamentally kind of say whether you should plant or not, but it does have kind of it's built into it that it's better to enhance what is there than to actually destroy and create something new, which has its pros and cons in different scenarios. And there's obviously pros and cons of the BNG metric, which we won't go into today. But we're kind of hoping that this portal and the NRN will stop just generic tree planting, because it's highlighting kind of other opportunities that you have that aren't just trees. Hopefully that's answered the question.
Okay, thanks, Gigi. Have you generated the zoning for grasslands, woodlands, etc. on the interactive map? And is there any relative error?
So that's done kind of using existing kind of data sets, and in terms of the relative error, so it is broad scale. So you're right, it's not like super fine scale. So if you have, so there was an example where if you have a bit of land and it falls literally like right adjacent to a grassland opportunity area and it doesn't fall on your bit of land, there is obviously a bit of leeway there. You can kind of look at that and say, well, it's right adjacent to grassland, so potentially actually putting in grassland here is going to be beneficial. So it's not, 100% accurate. It's always going to be the way with these things. Dave, maybe you can come in on this one.
Yeah, I mean, there will always be, to a fine degree, a decision needed about, is it, what sort of grassland is it? And obviously we're looking that this informs that decision as much as possible. There's already, that we'd be available to give that more detailed field specific guidance if required.
Yeah.
Okay. Question from Natalie. How are you addressing the needs of protected or otherwise notable species?
Well, so in the actual the software that's been used, that does take into account species dispersal and types of species. So there is a relative factor involved in this that does relate to species through that ecological modelling. If there's particular species that are of interest to a locality, it might be that we remap an area or run that site again through software just to make sure that that species is absolutely picked up within that mapping.
Okay. Are portions of credits available? For example, if you required half a credit for a small site, would that be rounded up to 1 on purchase?
So in the portal, yes, you can put it as 0.5 or 0.25 or whatever. I assume on purchase it's done as well, like 0.25. So with this portal, obviously, all negotiations and payment between a developer and a landowner will take place through the chat, but offline. Like the portal itself isn't, no money is going to be changing hands through the portal. So all of that would happen like on negotiations. But yes, I'm pretty sure you do purchase at the exact number. So if it's 3.45 units, that's how much you purchase. So you'd have to negotiate the cost of that with the person that you're making the agreement with. But no, it wouldn't be rounded on the portal either. So you can put 0.25 into it.
Okay. For developers, so this is on the portal, is it necessary to input a planning application number, as we may wish to do this pre-application?
So at the moment it is, because we were generally assuming when we started creating this that it would be when a developer already knows the number of units that they need, and so therefore would already have a planning application and process. But if this is something that developers think actually would be really useful post development, then maybe that is something we could maybe have a chat about internally and have a think. So yeah, thank you for that. That's really useful information.
Okay. I'm not sure if we know the answer to this one, but what will be the impact of BNG management on land values, e.g., will farmland values decrease due to a 30-year plan? I presume bank lending criteria to landowners will be affected by management plans.
Yes, obviously we are largely ecologists, not land management in terms of land agents. So difficult one to predict, to be honest, at the moment.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's something that is being talked about a lot from the government point of view as well in terms of the land strategy. So I'm really sorry we can't answer that question for you, but it's a good question.
How are units sold and prices determined? Does this relate to demand and quality?
So that's a good question. So obviously within Net Gain Staffordshire, we don't do anything to do with the money in terms of how much a unit is. So a unit from one site could be very different from a unit at another site. And it's essentially the government wanted to be market driven. So various factors are going to influence the cost of a unit. So it's going to be, so the type of habitat being restored or created. So obviously wetlands and kind of river restoration is a lot more expensive than general grassland, so you might ask for more money as a landowner. the location of the site. So certain local authorities will probably have more demands. Like you said, is it going to be a supply and demand thing? I'm pretty sure that will be the case. And then just general kind of negotiations. So we would recommend that if you are a landowner, potentially getting kind of help with that. So there are brokers and there are people who can kind of help you with the money side of things and getting legal assistance. That isn't something that we at Net Gain Staffordshire or at the Wildlife Trust would do. We might give you some advice, but we wouldn't ever get involved in the actual negotiations.
Okay. What is the process that you will undertake to verify a scheme put forward by a landowner?
So at the moment, in terms of verification, it's more just to verify that what you have put up is correct in terms of the mapping elements and the fact that it's actually going to be displayed on the portal. It's something we're having kind of internal discussions about, but in terms of actually kind of verifying the quality of the work, that isn't necessarily something that falls on the Net Gain Staffordshire's responsibility. But we would want to have information relating to kind of the ecologists that did the work. Obviously, for a site to be eligible for BNG, the surveys have to be undertaken by an accredited ecologist. So we would want probably to have some kind of evidence of that. But at the moment, in terms of us saying yes or no for a site being on, that isn't really our kind of decision. It's essentially if your site is eligible, it can go up onto the portal. You will also have to register your site with the National Registry, not to be on Net Gain Staffordshire, but to be eligible for BNG in general. That is something that you have to do. And there is various bits of information about the National Registry on there from DEFRA. So that's just something to keep in mind as well.
Okay, and if a landowner signs up on the portal, can they withdraw or are they bound to Net Gain Staffordshire?
Yeah, you can remove your site at any time if you don't want it to be on there anymore. That isn't a problem at all. It's fine.
Okay, so that's all the questions from the Q&A. We've also got Mark Wilson, who's raised his hand. So if I'll allow you to talk, Mark, so you can ask the question live. You just need to unmute yourself. No. Do you want to ask your question, Mark?
Or if you want to write it in the Q&A, maybe?
Yeah, or if you want to email us afterwards, it's fine as well. So I think that's all the questions now that we've done. So thanks everyone for attending the webinar. And if anyone thinks of any questions afterwards, please feel free to contact us. So any questions about the portal or BNG in general, you can contact us on bionetgain at staffs-wildlife.org.uk. Thanks everyone.
Sorry, Liz. Sorry, just quickly, one person has asked a question just about the National Register. So they've asked, do you have to sign up to the National Register as well? So the National Register is slightly different to Net Gain Staffordshire. So the National Register is going to be the legal requirement so that essentially the government can kind of keep tabs or keep an eye on land and also developments that are using BNG, but it isn't a search and find tool. So if you're on the National Register, a developer can't find you and you can't get in touch with developers. You also don't have any of the mapping element as well. It's purely an inventory for the government, essentially. So you do have to, it will be a legal requirement to be on the register. It's obviously not a legal requirement to be on Net Gain Staffs. But yeah, they are different things essentially. So that's just something to keep in mind. And maybe we should put some information about that on the portal actually.
Okay, all right, thanks very much. So we'll be, if you want to catch up on anything, we'll be sharing the recording on YouTube, probably go out on probably over the next week or so. And thanks for attending.
Thank you, everyone.